Now I'm going to talk about the budget, what's going on in terms of the state budget, and hopefully I'll keep it at a relatively macro level so you all have an idea, probably already have some ideas of what's happening, but I want to keep this at a macro level, not get done into too much in terms of the minutiae of the process. First and foremost, every twice a year, the management budget does what they call a forecast for the trend line for the state spending, state budget revenues and spending forecast, often referred to as the forecast. Comes out, the last one came out in March, beginning of March. What this is it's state government on autopilot. In other words, if nobody did anything, where would the budget go? What would be the expenditures? What would be the revenue? That forecast that came out in March said that the state was projected over the next 2 years. Starting, the budget cycles run 2 years. It started July 1st. So starting July 1st, 2011, how much is the state forecasted to bring in, and how much is the state forecasted to spend? $39 billion on autopilot. That's real money. That's your money, my money, and lots of other people's money. So in the forecast said revenues versus expenditures were going to be $5 billion short. In other words, going to come up not being able to make a mortgage payment. What are we going to do? Governor Dayton, his budget proposal was to winnow down the $39 billion to $37 billion. One little caveat in there, there was a little thing that was done during the last legislative session called the K-12 shift. Probably heard that term. What that means is, yes, we operate the state budget on what is essentially a cash system. In other words, gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. And what we're saying is all of the school districts across the state is going to, the state collects the property taxes, portions out the money. So we just say to all the schools across the state, we're going to pay you in August rather than in June, because that way we'll balance the books. Well, according to the last legislative session, that $1.4 billion was going to be repaid during the next 2 years. Governor Dayton said, well, I don't think so. So part of that, from 39 to 37, there's about $1.5 billion there of slush fund, and he's saying, well, we're not going to pay you back. And so what is Governor Dayton's real budget reduction? About $500 million, maybe, out of the $39 billion. So the next thing is, let me talk about how much did we spend in the 2010-2011 budget cycle. Anybody know that?
34?
32. Here's the winner. Very good. This guy's paying attention. He listens.
He's running for office.
He's running for office. Okay. Well, it's a good thing we have people at least know the numbers who are running for office. That's what helps. A lot of these people down there don't know the numbers. It's a very complex and a very difficult situation. Don't mean to make light of their efforts, but again, this is unfortunately a lot of what we have going on right now is amateur hour. These are people who really don't have the background and some of the information by which to make good decisions, even if they have the right perspective. So $32 billion. Now that's how much the state spent during the last 2 years. There's another little caveat that people want to talk about. That's all the money we got from the federal government. So the quote-unquote federal stimulus money, and I don't know if anybody really knows how much money and where it went, but supposedly one of the discussions that's going on down at the Capitol as well, it was $32 billion, but wait a minute, there's all this other money we spent too. So we got to count that. So with you big discussions, with, people argue about the numbers all the time. Bottom line is that they came up and, as I said, $32 billion, but you can fudge the numbers, you can push it around the table, as I said, as to how much the state actually spent. Now, so House and Senate, Republican-controlled House, Republican-controlled Senate, and they have both passed budgets that are somewhat similar, but different in a lot of the spending categories: public safety, education, and health and human services. About 12 areas, 12 different budget bills now sitting in conference committees. Save one, the Ag Bill, which the Ag Bill is $79 million under the correction budget. $79 million. That bill was passed, sent to the governor. Governor Dayton signed. So, save the Ag Bill, the Republicans passed a budget which spends $34 million. So they're increasing state spending by $2 billion. So here's the question. How come every time you read a story, every time you hear about what's going on at the state capitol, they say, they're doing what?
Republicans cutting.
They're cutting the budget. They're cutting the budget. They're cutting the budget. It drives me crazy. They aren't cutting anything. I love that Tom Emmer had this. I thought it was a great analogy. He had this, gave this analogy on the radio. He said, I got a 14-year-old son. My 14-year-old son gets an allowance of $12 a week. So he comes to me and he said, Dad, I want, I've got things going on. I've got a new girlfriend. I've got other expenses. I really need, an increase in my weekly allowance. I want $18 a week. Okay? He has it all written down and says, Dad, here's how much I'm spending, and I need that other $6 a week, $18. So Mr. Emmer says to his son, he said, son, it's been tough. He said, I've been out on the campaign trail for the last 15 months, haven't had an income. And so family budget's really tight. Can't afford it to give you $6 a week. Tell you what, give you an increase in your allowance, $2 a week. And so what does his son say? I just got cut by $4 a week. That's what they're saying to us every time. Every time they come out and say, we're not, every agency, every program is a cut. It's a cut from what? It's a cut from a projected increase. In other words, on autopilot. It's just going to keep going. Now, how many of you here, how many people here set your family budget based on what you think your employer or what increase in income you may get over the next 2 years? Anybody do that here? Anybody say, well, gee, I can afford a new car, I can afford to go out and spend money on this, and I can go buy this, and we can spend money on it, because guess what? My calculation is that I'm doing such a great job at work, my employer is going to give me a 10% wage increase. And so it's just, as I said, exponential growth in government. Governor Dayton's budget spends 22% more than